up. And similarly, you have complements. So a complement, if demand for one product goes up, and if they're complements, then the demand for the other will go up. These move, they're directly correlated with one another. All right, so keeping that in mind, let's do number 35. Assume that people like onions on their hamburgers. So if they like onions in their hamburgers, they're not independent and they're not substitutes, they're complements. So from the terms we just did, we know that onions and hamburgers are going to be termed complements. If the supply of hamburgers decreases, then the demand for onions will most likely, and here we know from our definitions that if one goes down for hamburgers and their complements, then demand for onions will also go down. Okay, so let's take a look at the choices and see which one is correct. Remain unchanged. Well, we know that that's not going to be correct because they're both going to go down together. Increase because hamburgers and onions are substitutes. Well, it's not going to increase and they're not substitutes, so that's both wrong. C, increase because hamburgers and onions are complements. Well, they are complements, but it's not going to increase. D, decrease because hamburgers and onions are complements, and that's exactly what we'd expect. And we'll just check the last one to be sure. Decrease because hamburgers and onions are substitutes. Well, we know they're not substitutes, so that's incorrect, so the choice here is D. Okay, number 36. If labor is the only variable input in the production process, the short-run marginal cost curve is upward sloping because which of the following occurs as more and more labor is added? So here we're lucky we have a nice graph with marginal cost on it, and we see that that marginal cost is upward sloping. So let's think about what this means. So this means that every time I make one extra piece, right? So I'm at this level, for instance, and I can make one extra piece, that extra piece costs me this price. Alright, so as I go to the next one, so I want to make an additional piece, it actually goes up and it's a higher price than it was before. So even though I'm making more, the cost of making that extra piece keeps going up, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm hiring more labor to make more, but they're inefficient and they're not producing the same amount, else I would have had the cost going. They're inefficient because the price is not staying the same. I mean, I should be able to hire more people and make more additional product at the same cost if they were staying exactly efficient, but it's upward sloping, the cost is more, there's less efficiencies with bringing people in, perhaps it's overtime, perhaps they're getting tired, but it's not efficient and it's costing me more. Alright, so let's take a look at the choices. Output decreases and thus marginal cost increases. Well, we know that we're not going to be decreasing quantity, we're increasing quantity, so that's not correct. Output increases and thus the marginal cost increases. So just because output increases does not necessarily imply that marginal cost increases. Marginal cost increases only when there's some type of inefficiency, so that would not be correct. Output increases at an increasing rate and thus the cost of producing each additional unit of output increases. Well, that's actually the opposite of what you'd expect. So if the output increases at an increasing rate, then actually the opposite would be true. The cost of producing each additional unit of product would be decreasing. So that also is not true. Alright, D. Output increases at a decreasing rate, and thus the cost of producing each additional unit of output increases. So that is actually the correct answer. So we know that output is continuing to increase, but it's increasing at a decreasing rate, which means that the cost of producing each additional unit is also increasing. So that's true. We'll check E just to make sure. Output increase at a decreasing rate, and that's true, and thus the cost of producing each additional unit of output decreases. So that's the opposite of what's going on. So here the correct answer is D. Okay, let's see what's going on in number 37. At a firm's current rate of output, the marginal cost is 65 bucks. So that means that the to make the very next output, it costs them $65 to make it. The average variable cost is 35 and the average fixed cost is 30. So remember, the average variable and average fixed cost, you add them together to get your average total cost. Their average total cost here is $65, just like the marginal cost, which means that if you take a look at all the shoes that they produced, over time, their average cost for making them is 65, which is exactly the same as their marginal cost in this case. and the product price is $65, so their marginal revenue is going to be $65. Now we've seen this before, where the marginal cost equals the marginal revenue. That's going to be your profit maximizing point. And then the economic profits is going to be the difference between the average total cost and the price. Okay, so let's use this chart below and see just what the chart would look like for the firm in number 37. So we know the price here is $65. They're right at the point of $65 on their marginal cost curve, and they're also here on the average cost curve. So we got to change where the average cost curve is for this problem. Okay, and keep in mind that because the average total cost was $65, and their revenue is $65 for every shoe, because you can see the price is flat. That's you get a perfectly elastic price curve when you have perfect competition. This guy is making no economic profits. In other words, he could make a shoe for $35 and $30, right, for an average total cost of $65, and he sells it for $65. So there's no economic profit at all, which you'd expect in perfect competition. Even worse, he can't even get any better because his marginal cost, right, is also the same as average total cost, which is also $65. So he's also at his profit maximizing point at this in this question. Okay, so bearing that in mind, let's take a look at the choices. Economic profits are zero because marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So economic profits are indeed zero, but it's not because the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost, right? When you're talking about marginal, it's just to make the next product. Economic profits, we're talking about a total for the company, where marginal, you're just talking about the next unit. So even though economic profits are zero, this is certainly not the reason, so we can't use that choice. B, economic profits are negative because total revenue is less than total cost. Well, we just said economic profits are zero, not negative, and total revenue actually equals total cost, so that is not true. C, economic profits are positive because total revenue is greater than total cost, and again, economic profits are zero, so that's wrong. D, economic profits are negative because price is greater than the average variable cost, and even though that's true that the price is greater than the average variable cost, you have to take fixed costs into consideration when you're doing economic profits. So again, that is incorrect. So finally, economic profits are zero, and that's what we just said, because price equals the average total cost, and that is exactly right. So the answer here is E. All right, number 38, so we finally get to use the chart that was meant for the problem. The graph above shows short-run cost curves of a firm in perfectly competitive market. So we'd expect that because the price is completely inelastic. That's the thing with perfectly competitive marketplaces. If you're got hundreds and hundreds of competitors out there, nothing you do is really going to affect the market because you could come in or go out. You're small compared to the total market size, and even though we know demand curves are downward sloping and prices do change, but they don't change for your supply. You just don't affect the market in perfect competition. And whenever you see a inelastic or horizontal price curve, you know you have perfect competition. So which of the following are true at the firm's profit maximizing output? So it says at the firm's profit maximizing output level, which means the marginal cost is going to equal the marginal revenue. So we know we are right here on the curve. That point is the profit maximizing level. All right, so price exceeds average total cost. It does. So the price here does exceed the average cost, right? Which means that he is actually making money, even though this is perfect competition. Remember, it's short run. Everything can happen in the short run. In the long run, this is going to get squeezed out. But for right now, he's in business and he's making money. Okay, 2, economic profits are zero. Well, he just said he's making money, so it's certainly not, economic profits are certainly not zero. Marginal cost equal average total cost. So it certainly does not. Marginal cost is up here, average total cost is down here, so that is not true. And number 4, new firms are likely to enter the market in the long run, and that is absolutely true. Whenever there's profits to be made, people will enter the market, so that is true. So the correct choices are 1 and 4, which is choice C.